Ultimately, we would like to end homelessness in our city.
There should be more people like them.
They couldn't have done any better.
असुर खर्चा का देख असुर हर जग दे बे अचुर टेंट उठंग असुर सामान उठंग देख दे ऐसी बात बे तुम गुटे टाल.
But the ambition is actually to work on radically improving those homes, also introducing new concepts for homes.
Nos ayudan con una vivienda digna para poder vivir, dormir.
They have such a size now that it's impossible for governments to ignore them.
Having found these world-beating projects, we can't just leave it at that. The really important thing is that somebody's got an answer to a huge housing problem. Actually, what we need is as many people as possible to take that up so it can solve the problem for all the people who need it.
We are so always talking about problem and problem and problem. Sometimes we forget about the success story.
So the World Habitat Awards are there to find solutions to the world's biggest housing problems. And the problems we have at the moment are vast. There are over 1 billion people who are dangerously or inadequately housed or indeed homeless on Earth. And we have a climate crisis, which a big proportion of it is actually made up by emissions from people's homes and from the construction of homes.
World Habitat Awards, always the concept is looking for innovation, looking for solution. The vision of our strategic plan is that better quality of life for all in the urbanizing world.
The good thing is that the answers to these problems and many others already exist. So throughout the world, there are people solving housing problems all the time, and there are amazing solutions already out there.
Ultimately, we would like to end homelessness in our city. What we were trying to do was make sure that people got the information, advice and support that they needed when they first came for help. If someone is homeless because they can't afford the rent and they leave a property, actually it costs us more to house them. So I think that investing money in prevention saves us money down the line.
Are absolutely amazing people to work with. They are so easy to talk to. Past few years I've known these guys. They've pulled me back from the brink a couple of times, and it's good. They are good at what they do. There should be more people like them.
She was there. If I needed to phone anybody, I would phone her, and she always picked up, and she'll just give us a ring out of the blue. Just to see how I am. I love it. I absolutely love it. And they couldn't have done any better.
The impact of the Newcastle project has been really quite phenomenal. What struck me is how integrated it was. That is, I can say, flat out very unique. It should be a lesson to other cities as well, that for a system to be responsive to the needs of their population requires actors to come together to make this project work.
I think this is where the Newcastle strategy at the citywide, multi-agency and data-informed approach. I think this is very, very important. And then which they identified and support the people through risk of homelessness.
It's understood under international human rights law that homelessness is a violation of the right to housing. So in that way, you can see that the Newcastle project is in fact a human rights project because it was steadfastly focused on ensuring people were properly housed. I love that about this project, and it's also part of why I'm really hoping it gets exported beyond the UK to other local governments.
Right now there's, if you will, too much water, which translates into floods and other events. At some point the ice will actually start depleting, and in the long term, I'm talking 30 to 50 years, there'll be perpetual droughts. That's not a way to make it sound dramatic, that's actually what there will be. So the challenge is first to see how you can deal with that risk, how you can deal with the increased water and the increased hazard and still do well. And secondly then, to see how for the long term you build a community that is resilient and can do with much less water and still do well.
अभी ज़मीनें कम होने की वजह से लोगों ने जो है ना अपने घर जो है वो सैलाब जहाँ खतरा है इन जगहों को शिफ्ट करना शुरू किया है। इन्हीं खतरात की पेश नज़र आका पाकिस्तान ने यहाँ आकर इन्हीं खतरा जगहों की पहले निशानदेही की, फिर वहाँ पर प्रोटेक्ट वॉल बनाया, फिर जो है अर्ली वार्निंग सिस्टम मुतरफ़ करवाया। जो ही बारिश होती थी मर्द हज़रात जो है वो डिप्टी पे चले जाते थे, औरतें और बच्चों को जो है वो महफूज मकामात पर मुंतकिल करते थे। अर्ली वार्निंग सिस्टम लगाने के बाद शेर किला में एक बहुत बड़ा सैलाब आया। अर्ली वार्निंग सिस्टम ने जो है ना पौना घंटा पहले इतला दी, जिसकी वजह से लोगों ने अपने आप को महफूज मकामात की तरफ मुंतकिल हो गए। अब आका ने जो है वो बंद बनाया है, जिसकी वजह से काफ़ी घर महफूज है, और अर्ली वार्निंग सिस्टम की वजह से हमें कबल अज़ वक्त जो है वो सैलाब का इतला हो जाता है और हम अपने आप को महफूज समझते हैं।
I think it's important to understand that no matter where you live, thanks to technology, you can actually aspire to achieving much better things than previous generations could. And our ambition is to make that work in these very, very geographically marginal mountainous communities. One really important thing about mountain communities is that they live remotely. So the only way to respond to disasters is by having volunteers in every community who are already there on the ground, so that you're always the first to respond. More than 40% of them are women. If you're a woman in northern Pakistan or Afghanistan, you can do something like that. You feel you're doing something very important. And we need women, because in those societies, you can't send a man into a bedroom with women and say, please evacuate. It is not acceptable. You can't do it without the women.
तो असी गुट्टे खेर मूसाल 4 देजी असी अरुवत सन 2015 अरु वही ऐसी बात 4 अप्रैल और असी गुट्टे खेर मूस वही सैलाब लाऊ की बात वाइन ए बिजेक बिल खीर मूस वही नवार गोटी हन पूरे तबाह थी असी इदारस असी लाई की खिदमत थी मालू हन ब्रारू हन गो माल हर जग बुट ऐसी खले बेहरी 15 देजी खेर स्कूल शुरेक असुर खर्चा का देख असुर हर जग दे बे अच्छुर टेंट उठंग असुर सामान उठंग देख दे ऐसी बात बे तुम गोटे टालस बस हुन खेते इदारस भी असुर खुरसने खुर वही खेर बस्टेंगिनी तेन बे लाई की महफूसनस के थी नार वार अरु मरु ने बुझुन ऐसे कर डायरेक्ट अकोट खेते बुझुन बटाल तो खेते बुझुन वे आल तो खेते बुझुन ऐसे कर बे लाई की महफूसनस.
The Aga Khan project in Pakistan is very consistent with the human rights approach, particularly in the face of climate change that can lead to housing insecurity and instability or precarity. What I particularly like about the project is the project really harnessed indigenous knowledge, and that's actually not commonly done.
What impressed me most is that the ability of the Aga Khan work in integrating the indigenous knowledge and technology for safer habitat to help better climate-proof settlement in disaster-prone areas in Pakistan. Because climate change is the poverty multiplier. We need a pro-poor approach to planning, building, and managing cities.
So a human rights approach requires that, in fact, every viable alternative to displacement be pursued. The idea of creating security and safety for your own community, that in and of itself must have a huge benefit for the community as a whole.
The majority of the population in Latin America are in informal work. And this is where organizations like Techo, they come in because they help those that they are forgotten, if you want to say, by the governments. Each country decides on what are the key objectives.
Techo hoy está teniendo un impacto muy potente. Hay una cosa que es muy tangible, que son las viviendas de emergencia, como te contaba, llevamos más de 100.000 viviendas, 129.000 viviendas construidas. Nosotros trabajamos con una familia que hasta hoy vivía en un piso de tierra en condiciones de inhabitabilidad totales, y en 2 días, junto con el voluntariado, se construye una vivienda que hace que esa familia ya no viva en la tierra. Y esa vivienda, además, le hemos hecho algunos estudios de impacto y científicamente está comprobado que mejora la calidad del sueño, que mejora la sensación de seguridad. Sabemos que no es la solución final, no pretendemos que lo sea, pero sí tiene estos impactos súper concretos.
Así fue como llegó Techo a nuestra comunidad. Nos ayudan con una vivienda digna para poder vivir, dormir. Lo que ya teníamos hijos, ya teníamos un espacio más abrigado para dormir. A partir de nuestra casa podías comprar algunas cositas, y lo que comprabas podías guardarla porque ya tenías una puerta, ya podías estar seguro de robos, y también podías estar segura con tus hijos, abrigado, como que sentirse segura en cuanto a infraestructura, pero también emocionalmente. Como una vez lo dije y lo voy a repetir, mi casa no solo es de madera, sino son muchas manos entrelazadas que nos dan abrigo y amor. Eso eran nuestras casas.
El efecto que tiene el vínculo entre el voluntariado y la población en sus vidas. Ese impacto de transformar la realidad de las personas que se encuentran es de las cosas más lindas y más importantes que tenemos en Techo. Por eso para nosotros también es muy importante poder formar equipos locales que no sean implementaciones de otro lugar. Ese fue uno de los grandes desafíos, cómo pasábamos de la implementación a un equipo local formalizado, con talentos que se vayan desarrollando, con personas que vayan creciendo dentro de la organización, que la solución a la pobreza sea con los vecinos y vecinas de los barrios. Queremos que sea participativa, con una participación vinculante, y queremos que sea con una mirada de enfoque de derechos humanos.
Techo are just this extraordinary organisation which have managed to scale up in a way almost no other organisation has done.
I think there is a need for organizations like Techo in Latin America because they also empower them to understand their rights in terms of shelter, in terms of quality of life. I think Techo has an influence in policy in Latin America because they have such a size now that it's impossible for governments to ignore them.
They've got a very clear idea of the principles of what makes good housing. They've been able to adapt that and grow it at a quite phenomenal rate.
I think climate change is making all of us think about our natural resources, and land certainly is a finite resource. They get to engage with people when they're having their gap year, and that helps to bring empathy to a whole generation.
Having found these world-beating projects, we can't just leave it at that. The really important thing is that if somebody's got an answer to a huge housing problem, actually what we need is to as many people as possible to take that up so it can solve the problem for all the people who need it.
Because of the World Habitat Award, we had a conversation with some colleagues in Canada. That's one of the advantages, I think, of winning an award like this one, where we can speak to colleagues internationally, find out what they're doing and see what value that can add to us.
We believe that the award and our partnership with World Habitat Awards and also UN-Habitat will help us tell that story, get in touch with others who are trying to do the same, learn from them, and hopefully they learn from us.
En un contexto tan difícil, que alguien reconozca la labor es, digamos, una luz de decir, estamos yendo por el camino correcto. Sin dudas el premio nos va a ayudar a sentarnos en algunas mesas internacionales de discusión en las que queremos estar.
When we already have a program which is successful and has a benefit, then it's a shortcut. Meaning that is the analysis, the data, the type of data, the type analysis is already there, the type of technology is already there. But of course there is no one solution for everything. But we have to adopt and adapt the process to another cities or another situation.
The awards start a process in which we will help organisations scale up and help them transfer those projects to other places so that it can benefit as many people as possible who need it.